5:30 on March 16th. So in present for Finance Committee, myself, Amy Fiden, David Phil, Paul Benjamin, Andy Kopacki is not with us today. He is out, but we have a new Finance Committee member, and we can all welcome Shardul Parmar. He is our newest member. So thank you, Shardul, for joining us. Welcome.
Thank you.
Today's on the agenda, we will be going over the budget for the police, fire, and inspections. And then at the end of our budgets, we will be talking with Laura from Valley CDC on the 40B that has been talked about at the Econo Lodge. So we can get started. I think that I will go with, unless there's anybody in a rush, I'm going to go with Tommy and Dee Dee because I think they'll be a little bit quicker. They'll be the quickest ones.
Thank you. Sorry, Chief.
So Linda's trying to get on. She'll pull up the budget. She's just trying to get on right now. If you could just hold off for 1 minute.
Course.
Yeah.
Okay. Is this the last round for you guys, or you still have more?
We have a little bit more. We have the town hall still to go through. And I think, let's see, Park and Rec. I don't remember that we did Park and Rec yet. Those are the only ones I can think of. Hi, Linda.
Hi.
Hello.
We are ready for you, and we're gonna do inspections first.
Okay. It has just taken me a little bit to get back onto my laptop from I have to switch computers for this, so I want to get into the sharing mode here. Okay, let's see if I can share that now.
There it is.
All righty.
Page 37.
Thank you, Paul. That's my
Oh.
next question. And then I'll be all caught up and ready to start the meeting. You've already started. I don't know what's going on.
Shardul, do you have a budget book?
You're muted.
I do not.
Okay, we'll make sure you get one.
The bestseller.
Thank you. So wait a minute, it's not 37. It must be what page did you say?
It's
the bottom of 37.
bottom of 37.
Oh, it is. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
Whew.
Perfect.
All righty. There we are.
So it's you want me to just explain a little about it?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Basically, I'd say about the same. You know, went up on the fuel due to the cost in that, except that we had put in for a part-time inspector for 20 hours, which you know, in time it should pay for itself as far as, you know, being able to do more inspections and more you know, keep up with things. And that's about the big change on it, I would say.
A part-time inspector in as far as just for you, or will that person can do plumbing, electrical as well?
They can only do, those are separate you know, inspectors that are actually paid. Those are per inspection anyway. It would be the, you know, in the building department itself, do annual inspections and, you know, paperwork and all.
Okay.
And the only other thing, I guess, is the administrator salaries. It isn't just to explain it. It isn't just Dee Dee's. It is both Terry and Dee Dee included in that. Just to clarify that.
Oh, that's helpful. administrative salaries. That's who, you said Gary?
Gary.
Terry, she's,
Terry.
yeah, Terry's, well, actually Teresa Frost. She's, 10 hours for us and 5 for planning and 4 for DPW. She does all
So-
our scanning.
So so Dee Dee, your job is a little different. I've always had, yours, because you're a little bit in everybody's budget.
Well, not anymore. I'm
Not
just in that budget, but yeah, then they combined mine and Terry's,
Okay,
which, I mean, I personally don't have a problem with it, but
okay,
sometimes I think others do because they think more, I don't know, but anyways, yes, that is, Terry is combined in with mine.
okay. But it's not in combining anything that had to do with Board of Health, right? Because all their inspection stuff and all their help is still separated from you, right? You're not doing any of that.
Correct.
Well, she's not getting paid for it. She has help all the time. Not compensated through another department.
Okay. All right. So I know that we talked about going from other departments. We were talking about at one point having a person that was going to take care of ZBA, a clerical person that would take care of all those others. So the planning board, and those were some of the things that Dee Dee was doing. So now Dee Dee, you'll be just solely in the inspections.
Yes, this
Correct.
past year I've been solely inspections, 37.5 hours inspections.
Okay.
It's been that at least this whole past year, Amy. I know she used to wear more hats, but
Okay.
it's gotten focused.
Well, I remember I used to have it up all the hours. So like, okay,
Yes.
so Dee Dee's over here for this many hours. She's over here for this many hours. She was all over the place.
Some of these things seem like a good idea at the time, and then it gets complicated and
Okay.
demands change.
And
Yep.
we've gotten very busy, very, very busy in our department, so.
Okay, good. That's good. Okay, that's all the questions I have on the inspectors. You can keep going if you want. Sorry to interrupt.
That's basically it. I don't know if Linda or Carolyn wanted to mention anything or any notes on it.
We may take that fuel line. We talked about that, right, Tommy? I keep forgetting which ones. Amy, I know we have talked about
Yep.
getting all of the fuel back down on the DPW budget. So this is another candidate for having the line, the 5480 line, inspectors auto fuel, removed from this budget and moved over to the DPW budget. And
Okay.
so far, it seems everyone we've talked about, and we'll have that in fire too, and in police, everyone really seems to be quite agreeable to that because it has been, it's always surprising to find out what has been annoying to people over the years, and there is a solution for it. And so I'm anxious to find out if we've got other things like this that
Yeah.
are relatively easy fixes if we know it's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And that way too, what really spurred it on though was not the administrative nuisance, but it's the fact that there was uncertainty about what the price of fuel was going to be in the coming year and how many budgets would have to accommodate a possible rise and be prepared for it or maybe amend their budgets in the fall. And this way we're just going to deal with the one budget. When we find out if there is an impact on what we have budgeted for auto fuel, we'll go to one budget and we can get it fixed at that time.
Okay. All right. Does anyone have any questions for Tommy or Dee Dee on this?
Oh, I'm good. There's a lot of buildings in this town and a lot of new construction, so we have to be there for it.
I think he's been very busy. They have been very busy in that office,
Mhm.
which is good.
So, yeah. And it does bring in revenue at the same time. There's
Right.
a
And they've spent more time on enforcement than we have had in the past, zoning enforcement, and that's also a great benefit to the town.
Yep.
Absolutely. I
Okay,
have
well,
questions. It's good.
great. Then, thank you very much
Yeah.
for coming.
Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Yeah, you too. Thank you.
After it.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, let's see. Chief Spanknable, are you here and ready to go?
Yes, I am here.
You are not on my screen anymore because my share stuff is on.
So you've got one of those budgets that doesn't fully fit on the screen, but if you want to start at the top, I will move when you get halfway down.
Okay. I also have a presentation for you if I could share the screen, but we can start out with, I don't know if you have questions on the budget initially. I can answer that because there's so many line items. I think the majority of them you're probably already aware of. The fire department budget, you can see there was a decrease in the wages full-time, and you'll see why that is when we get to the ambulance proposal. Everything else was pretty much the same. This budget does, when I share the screen, I'll show you the breakdown, but this does include 2 firefighter positions. And I guess it also increases our admin to 30 hours a week. They're currently only 19 to stay under the benefits. That was the original reason. But we desperately need additional support on that end. Again, we're doing all the same inspections with Tommy, and now with the new NFPA update that we have to comply with some more unfunded mandates, but we are now required to permit and review all solar installations and battery storage installations. So that's another layer for my office. We also have some pretty sizable projects coming up. The storage facility, that's going to be a substantial plan review, and some substantial revenue coming in at the 5 cents a square foot. So we should see some good revenue on that on the fire department side for both fire alarm and sprinkler. Again, everything else in here, the engine ladder testing and maintenance has remained the same. So I guess I would ask if you have any questions on the fire department budget.
I have a question on the telephone internet. That's gone up quite a bit.
Yes. So the telephone internet includes the new town fiber high-speed internet through the MBI system, which is $1,700.98 or $17.98 a month. But that will be going out to all town departments. It is based in the fire station. We are the hub for it. The MBI system is here, so everything terminates or starts here, I should say. They are in the process. We report on this basically every month to the department head meeting. Basically all the fiber has been run to all the buildings, and they are testing the fire and police departments right now. So I am on actual town fiber internet right now. We're making sure there are no glitches. Then they move to police for another couple of weeks, and then we start rolling it out to the other departments. We're also waiting for, because of the Route 9 expansion, our fiber needs to get relocated to the new poles that they put up. And that has resulted in our fiber being too short in sections. So they need to add and splice. That's going to be a cost, an initial upfront cost that has to be paid by the town of $113,000, which will be reimbursed by the state immediately. So they're now working on that project to get that done. Again, we should hopefully start seeing some cost savings and shedding our spectrum bills from departments soon once the system is up and running.
Okay.
The 95,700 that you see, that is the second. It'll be the second year of the maintenance contract and installation of the receivers that we had done. So that's year 2 of that.
Where's that one, Mike?
Under the fire equipment,
Oh, I see it now.
radio repair and maintenance.
Oh, that's the second part.
It's gonna, they had a late start on it. So it's gonna be in the next 4.5 budgets or 5 budgets. That's
Okay.
why you see it, a lot hasn't been expended yet at this point.
Is it going up every year or is it the same, gonna be the same around 95
That'll be the same every year.
for about 5 years?
For 5 years.
Okay. As far as the internet and the, that bill goes, will we be able, Linda, to just kind of like the, fuel line, be able to put them all under one? So take all the other departments and put them all under here?
That is
Or
all
move
the
it.
departments.
This is all the departments,
Yeah, so that's $1,798 is the internet for all town buildings.
all town. Okay.
But we also still have telephone internet in the in each of the individual building budgets. So when is the point where one takes over and we can drop the others, Mike? Do you know yet?
I'm only handling the internet portion. As far as telephones, we kept our own, both police and fire, because we have emergency management cell phones. We have our emergency management case that we can set up if we have to, that we used at the town meetings to get internet. So we kept it separate because it goes up and down based upon what we need for emergency management, police and fire, as far as our cell phones. That's why we kept our own. Again,
Okay.
the internet portion should be going down in all of our budgets. So you should see a decrease once we can start shedding the Spectrum bills.
Okay, so they are for the buildings, they're all in that 190 budget that Jennifer runs out of town hall. So we don't have to jump to all the different budgets, but you're saying that we may see a decrease in that line. And so you work with Jennifer. I mean,
Correct.
as long as okay, I'll talk with Jennifer about it if she's aware, because it would be good to know if that is something that we can bring down in another budget. Or if we
Yep.
don't know when it is, then maybe we have to have the double coverage for a little while.
Yeah, we're gonna need to keep this until we get everything in place.
Yeah.
Again, the fiber was run, but there's still equipment and stuff that's going to be needed in individual buildings. So we're going to have to stay status quo until we're basically on phase 1 of this installation so we have the fiber run. Now we're going into livening it up in all the buildings, and it takes equipment there. So that's why we're going to have to stay status quo for right now.
So Mike, is that 16,000 or I should say that 30,000 or whatever it is that for equipment or is that just a service?
The 30,000, so that includes so the 1798, whatever that is, times 12 for internet, and then it includes Spectrum internet for the fire department. The police have their own Spectrum accounts because they will not combine both of us. It also includes my cell phones and emergency management phones. So that's all included there as well.
So that's a service, not including equipment.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
I'll just
Mike,
scroll-
and Mike, how long do you expect this to be? Is this something that I guess what's the timeline for this to, I guess, start reducing?
I wish I could tell you. Like I said, I'm working very closely with the IT person who's been handling this. So Bill Glover, and basically we've had multiple meetings both with our fiber company, our IT folks here that are that we've basically got the hub down. So like I said, we're testing fire and police first, because we cannot shed we have to make sure that we have internet connections, obviously, especially the police side. So that's the priority right now. And then after that, it will be rolling it out. I wish I could give you that. We were trying to find an intern. We have not been successful on that yet, to do an inventory of equipment in all the buildings, because we have some very antiquated equipment, especially in the DPW and the water treatment plant. So basically, if we turn the internet on in those spaces, our high-speed internet through the MBI system, they're going to need the equipment to, the modems and the equipment to actually get onto that internet. So again, the project started out with me providing the fiber as part of the North Station build out, and it's kind of gone to a new level now with hooking into the high-speed internet. So the hope is, I would hope by, I'm not even gonna make a guess for you. I'd rather not throw Bill Glover and his crew. I know they're working, they've been working nonstop on this. And I would hope soon. Just so you know, this also includes, and I've told you this before, but once the system is online between all the buildings, we have the funding in place, and we'll be installing shortly the equipment in all the town-owned buildings, where we will be then monitoring our own fire alarms in our own dispatch center. So, Shardu, like your hotel, you have to pay for the monitoring every year. We're doing that for all the town buildings right now. That will change to it being monitored by our own department, so that cost will go down. That's over that high-speed fiber as well, and so that's also, you'll also see a decrease in that. We'll only have to pay for a service contract to have it inspected annually, so we'll shed that cost as well. So there's a number. It's just the time it's going to take to get everybody up to speed on it.
So you're saying it's critical for all the other departments to kind of or somebody to inventory all that all that infrastructure to get this.
We do have some, like the police and fire departments are done because it's a new structure. I think the senior center and the new library will be okay, but town hall, I think Jennifer has some information on it. But like the DPW and water treatment and Callahan Wells, the old library, those need some inventorying. The schools are on their own. However, we are going to be interconnected with them with switching, so that if one of our systems goes down, we'll be able to basically flip a switch with security to be able to allow them onto our system, or and vice versa. So we have redundant backup that way. Again, yeah, that's where we're at right now. We had requested through Hopkins Academy to get an intern, but they felt that it was a little bit too big of a scope for high school student. And we were looking to UMass to assist with that. And we haven't really had any success on that end.
You want to jump right to the equipment? I mean, I see that you have 15,000 in there for the equipment, since do you have certain equipment that you're looking at in that budget, or is that just still part of what you just talked about?
Which one are you talking about?
Wait, are you just here?
Yep, right there.
Yeah, so that's our computer and hardware. That's kind of labeled odd. That's our software systems. So that's our emergency reporting system, and so that's not real. It's not us buying computers and stuff like that.
Okay.
So it's different systems that we have to have in place on our computers.
Oh. So if it's a regular, normal systems, is there a reason why it went up so much, or?
Yeah, well, we have to, let me pull up, I can see if I can find the exactly what it's being used on. Hold on 1 sec. right, so. Five, 840. Yeah, so that's our NFPA code online. That's $1,300 a year. Our emergency reporting system, which this year is 4,300, but we have to change that system because we also are going to need. Basically, we found a more robust system to do all our inspections, permitting, invoicing, scheduling, and it also includes the ambulance reporting software that we're going to need for our basic ambulance. It includes if we have to have service in from Com Computing, our IT provider, that comes out of there if something happens. And then so the new system is called First Due, and that's been split between this budget and the ambulance budget. That's 18,000, 18,500, I believe. So that's why you're seeing the 15.5 in there. It's very similar to what Tommy has for his building inspections. And we have reviewed multiple systems, and this one basically it allows us to do pre-planning, putting in our hydrant locations, our inspections that are required under ISO for all of our vehicles for tracking that. We're tracking training, which is also required under ISO and also OSHA. So it's a complete system, and it also allows us to notify we're actually, one part of the system is notifying our firefighters via email for calls as well. So right now we're using, it's called emergency reporting, or e-dispatch, I should say, where our phones will scream at us if there's a call on top of our pager. So if somebody's out of area for our pagers, the phone will notify them if there's a call. So that's part of that cost.
Okay, thank you.
The addition to the bunker coats and pants, that's the increase. We're looking at a pretty substantial increase again. We're trying to keep up every year with our turnout gear. So we've budgeted for 5 sets a year because they cannot be used after 10 years of age. They have to be decommissioned. So that's you can see what that increase is in that additional bunker coat, the equipment grant, the equipment portion there.
Okay. I don't have any other questions on this section.
No, I'm good. Good presentation. Thank you.
So Mike, I'm thinking if we just go through the next ambulance budget and then refer to the third one, which is going to be the one in the article, then you go over to your, because that will set the stage for your reorganization or whatever. Okay.
Yep.
All right. So this is actually, as you can see here, the fire on the bottom lines here, you can see the fire department budget itself from 878 to 865, which is actually a decrease. It's not a decrease in services, it's a reallocation of funding, and this is relating to the new ambulance service that is coming up. We have, here is the ambulance budget as we have seen it in the past few years. You see you've got 21, 22, and then 23, the year that we're in here. And you see for 23 is where additions were made to the budget to begin the build up towards the new service. And then you see for 24, that's come right back down again because we're going to handle the ambulance services differently, building towards the special revenue. Is there anything more you want to say, anything we want to say about this one, Mike, before I move on to the larger one?
No, just that the contract rate, the Action EMS has kept it. They haven't increased it. We're keeping it the $299, $440, and there are discussions of reworking that in the future. But as of right now, we're keeping that contract the same.
Right, and that cannot be covered by special revenue funds or any ambulance revenues.
Correct. And this year we did receive was it, we did receive a rebate based upon their, what they brought in for revenue. So the 299, 440 that we had expended for them, actually we received just over 100,000.
Right, about 105, yeah.
So that was good news. We are seeing where we are coming out of the COVID decrease that we saw. So again, our first year was the full return. Second year was 120 something. Third year dropped to the 990 because of COVID. So we are seeing that increase in call volume. So hopefully we'll continue to see an increase.
So this ambulance budget will continue to be funded, as in the contract with the Action Ambulance will continue to be funded out of the general fund. And then,
Linda, do you remember what we put in the revenue side for this, on this budget for the, as far as the rebate goes? And is it?
or this is the one that is probably in a little high, that we had put in 150,000, thinking that we would begin that increase, because in 20 the rebate was 267,000, and most of our revenues from pre-COVID have rebounded fairly well. As Mike said, it went down, it got about cut in half the next year, and then went down to under 99 the following year. So we started swinging that budgeting for the revenues up again, but it's not just a matter of the revenues being higher, it's a matter of how it works out with the rest of the contract. So we may have that one budgeted a little high for 24. We did put it in 150. I'm not sure we won't get that, because that revenue is what the rebate we get is based on
the previous
what
year
is received the previous year, and the previous year being right now, which we're 3/4 of the way through.
we have to do a 3-month look back. So they're still so December 31st, they're still collecting in insurance. So we have 3 months after the end of the year to look at that. But I should say June 30th.
Right.
So they also made it very clear that, again, each year you're going to have a difference in what your calls are, first of all, and what you might be getting for insurance payouts. So you very well may see a year where, a lot of folks are paying Medicare, Medicaid without second payer insurance. So you could see a decrease in that. Again, you're not really going to be able, it's going to be hard to do that. I have maintained, I think a safe number is $100,000 to budget, but that's up to you guys. And that was the recommendation of the ambulance as well, just to be safe, but that's up to you. Again, we don't have the crystal ball on what those revenues are going to be based upon the calls.
Okay.
So knowing that we're going to go into a new way of business here with the ambulance, a budget was put together, which is not, it's not in your total summary budget, because this is the budget, the running the future ambulance, which is Hadley's portion of it, not what's contracted out, is going to be funded out of the revenues from running the ambulance service. And so we had a couple of meetings early on in the budget process, wondering, do we add these expenses in and increase the budget by 403,000 when it's, or do we separate this out? And we decided at some point that we would put this into an article, which has to be initially be funded by free cash, but because right now we don't have special revenue, you have to start the program before you get the money in. And we can't allocate out special revenue until we've received the special revenue. So there's going to be a lag there. So we decided the best thing to do, but Mike put together this portion of the budget of everything it's going to take to run the ambulance. We're going to ask that it be on an article that be funded out of free cash. The other benefit to the article is, even if we get kick in sometime during the year payments from the special revenue fund, if it's not fully funded from special revenues in the first year, the article will continue into the second year. However, at such point where the special revenues completely are able to fund the ambulance service, if there's anything left over, then it would come back into the general funds. Or we might even be keeping track of what the free cash has advanced and collect some of it back. I don't know. It depends on how it goes. We have lots of thoughts about how we can, how we would run this in the future. It depends on the success, or maybe I should say it's going to be how soon we see the success. So I just wanted to explain how we got to that article, and now, Mike, I'll leave the going through the budget itself to you. And anytime you want to start sharing what you have, I'll just get out of screen sharing so that make room for you.
Okay, so myself and my deputy chief and our EMS coordinator, we surveyed between 4 and 6 departments to come up with a reasonable first year budget. And I just want to make this very clear that this first year's budget is for second calls for service. This is a basic level ambulance service. This is for second calls, and we average between 100 to 150 calls per year that we are missing to mutual aid or Med 2. So again, this is coming from the fire chief. It's all about response time and quick care to our patients. So we came up with this budget, and the wages full time, the decrease that you saw on the fire side, I think it's important that, we're responding to all these medical calls, and it's in my PowerPoint I have for you, but in an effort to provide the best patient care, and many times multiple hands are needed anyways, but also getting our ambulance to the hospital and back in service quickly, as that has been accomplished by having our daytime crew go out on all EMS calls with the ambulance. Just this past week, we had not only 2 police officers, but 3 firefighters and our paramedic and EMT working a patient up in North Hadley. My firefighter had to drive the ambulance, so I become his position while he's taking that patient to the hospital because they needed both medics in the back. And that happens quite frequently. We get some pretty serious calls, again, for service. And then obviously, ambulance intermittent employees is to, if we, depending on how we build this out, the wages full time, we felt it was important that this special revenue account, basically when we start getting insurance receipts back in, that be paying for that. Again, this might change in the future, where you might see the fire department, that line going down additionally. There are a lot of departments that fund multiple firefighters out of their EMS special revenue account. But this is a work in progress. Again, as part of the 5-year plan that I had started in 2010, the ambulance oversight committee that was put together, we had initially discussed, and we were hoping to take a portion of any revenues that came back. So the subsidy that we received every year, we were hoping to take some of that. And Amy, you've been part of the oversight committee, but it ended up going back to the general account. The hope was to build up an account when we started in 2018, where we would have some startup money to get going. We didn't do that. The ambulance that we purchased, we were very fortunate to get one of Northampton's they were putting out of service. The cost for an ambulance right now new is over $500,000. I was just at our fire chiefs meeting, and I surveyed 3 or 4 different companies, and not only are they having a hard time getting them, they're so back ordered. You're looking at a 2-year turnaround time for an ambulance now, but you're looking at $500,000 for it. So our $20,000 ambulance that we received from Northampton, which is in excellent working order, just came back from painting. So all the work that's been done on it by my firefighter mechanic, all that has come out of my fire department budget, and we're probably looking at about a $35,000 to $40,000 cost for a $500,000 ambulance. I mean, I know it's used, but it's in excellent condition. So the equipment that's needed on it, most of it's been purchased either by capital or by grant money. So we're pushing hard. We'll have our applications in by April for this, and we will immediately start training. We're just finishing building out the rig. Our EMS coordinator is putting our trainings together. We have to have our mutual aid plan set up. So we have a bunch of work to do, but the goal is to have this ambulance in service July 1st. We'll be working with the Hadley to Lane and other sites to see if they'd like to set up some transfers. So that's why we have some funding under the ambulance intermittent employees. If we have a scheduled delivery of a patient, those are all, guaranteed insurance money. So we're looking at ways that we can start bringing revenue immediately with this ambulance. But again, I don't have the crystal ball, and this is probably going to be a couple-year process to start seeing revenues where we would be covering, this cost. Again, we can't switch to an ALS level of service until we have gone through a minimum of 1 year as a BLS service. Again, we'll be establishing mutual aid agreements with Northampton, Amherst, South Hadley, South County to the north of us. If we do, as a BLS ambulance, if we request an ALS intercept, there's a base fee that we pay to that community that responds, and then our ambulance becomes ALS. So it gets billed out at an ALS level. So there is additional revenue that comes in for that, depending on the insurance payer, obviously. So that's why we have intercept fees in here. We have the collection services. So that's basically the collection services is the company that we would hire to do all of the billing. They're a professional company. All departments use this. Nobody does in-house billing anymore. We have 2 different companies that we're interviewing right now. Both of them get between 2 and 4% of the receipt. And if they have a non-payer, that's what we would be looking at the collection services. Is what we would be covering that cost with. Again, everything else is pretty much, I think if you have any questions on the other lines, I'd be happy to go through those, but that's what we have so far.
As far as the wages go, is this part of, I know it's the BLS, and is this is this just daytime, or is this 24/7?
Starting out right now, this is daytime. However, if we get the 2 additional employees, we are hoping to be able to start staffing 24/7. It's not, we don't have enough manpower to staff 24/7, 7 days a week. We would need 4 tours of 2. We wouldn't have that. So we would have, we're not going to have full-time staff. So we would 24/7, but we would have some 24/7 coverage. We are in the process of applying for the SAFER grant, that staffing grant, which unfortunately we've had a hard time getting a positive on that because of our financials are tough, but we've been really working hard and really just trying to get our partners to reach out to the state senators and representatives and I know Carolyn's been doing this too, just so that they can maybe support us on this, because they don't understand what we're protecting. That all they see is that we have a population of 5,000, and that we have, what our tax rate is, what we have in capital, what we have in free cash, what we have in stabilization. They go through all those numbers and they look at it. And like I said, the last time I received our rejection letter, it was like, we don't see a financial need. So we're trying to express to them that we've made a substantial investment in increasing staffing, that we've made a substantial investment in infrastructure by adding a new fire station, and that we're really desperate and in need of their support to make this final step, which we are requesting 3 additional firefighters, to actually build out the 4 tours of 2 with 2 firefighters that would remain on a 4-on, 4-off schedule during the day, so that we would have, at certain times of the day, we would have the 3, and plus myself and the deputy. The tough part for us is, the other tough part of the grant is they want to see where you have 6 on a first due apparatus, because that's based upon NFPA standard. OSHA standard is 2 in, 2 out, so that's 6. That's 4 people at a minimum. And I'll go over that in my presentation too. But we've really researched and I think put together a pretty reasonable grant request, I hope. So that's due tomorrow. So we've been working feverishly on that, and it's been quite exhausting, but I'm hoping I'll have good news for you.
Great, thank you. Okay,
Should I
go
get
ahead.
out of, should I stop share on this?
Are you folks okay with me just giving you a quick look see at the department? Because I think if you can get eyes on what we're actually dealing with, it might make you a little bit more aware of why we feel that we've reached the tipping point and why we need to get to 24-hour staffing.
Okay,
I mean, Shardul, I meet him all the time over at his hotel at 2 a.m. sometimes. So, anyways, if you don't mind, if that's okay with everybody.
So it's all yours, Mike.
Yep.
Hopefully I can do this.
Starting's the hard part.
Yeah.
No, Mike, this ambulance service, this is really, we're still going to have the contractor, right?
Correct. To start with,
So this is like a supplemental.
Correct. Yep.
And I guess maybe it was before me, but it was demonstrated that there was, meaning 24-hour service for fire department. You know, I don't have any issues with that. If this is also covering that, my question is for the ambulance service for the second call. There's been demonstrated that there's been a need for that.
Oh yes, absolutely. Okay, Linda, you're gonna have to give me a tutorial here because I have some very odd looking Zoom flyer here, and it's not. There we go. Let me start again here.
Okay, so do you see share screen at the bottom?
Yep.
Of your,
I
okay.
got that part. Yep.
And you hit that, and then
Yep.
you're onto your desktop.
Yeah, that's the thing, is it's not showing me it shows me Dropbox, Microsoft OneDrive. I was just wondering, it's not showing me my desktop here.
Okay, I wonder, switching
Microsoft
to go
SharePoint.
to file. Yeah, if you have it, it's in basic there. That should be your desktop. I just have these things. It shows up. Is it in,
Let me see.
what's the form of what you have it in? Is it
It's
Word, Excel?
It's a PowerPoint. Let me see if
Okay.
I'll open it up and see if that changes it. Sorry about the delay, folks.
I know, if you want to grab it and email it to me, we can see which of us gets there first.
Okay. Oh, there we go. Let's see if this works. We see that?
Yes,
Yep.
yes.
It's a miracle.
I know. It's always feels so good when you finally get there.
Okay. All right. How's that?
Mhm.
All right. Well, we'll make this quick. Again, so I just wanted to show you what our current staffing is. So full-time chief and deputy chief. We have 2 full-time captains and 2 full-time firefighters. Our 1 full-time firefighter EMS coordinator, who's also a paramedic. 1 our fire admin. 3 call force and 18 call firefighters, and 1 junior call firefighter, our student from Hopkins. So our call force numbers fluctuate up and down, and it depends on availability, but we've been struggling with response from our call force. Unfortunately, it's been challenging. So this is a quick look at the call volume from 2019 to 2022. So we've had a 10% increase in call volume from 19 to 22. We responded to 1,528 calls. 70 to 80% of those calls are during the hours of 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. That's why we scheduled our 4-on, 4-off tour that way. Here's a little breakdown of 22 department runs. So we had 792 calls for fires, or fire related calls, and then 731 calls for EMS that we responded. Again, you can see the 1525. Calls from 1800 to 6, so overnight we had 271 calls, 54 calls, only one person responded, either myself or the deputy usually. And during 2022 we had 298 overlapping calls, so multiple calls going on at the same time. So for example, today I was working a lift assist with one call force firefighter up at our special one of our group homes up in North Hadley. The gentleman got stuck in his wheelchair in the back of a lift van, and they couldn't get him out. The wheelchair and himself weighed over close to 500 pounds. We tried to get the lift working but couldn't. So 4 firefighters and 2 police officers were able to back his rig out of the rig and got him on the ground. Mutual aid 31 times to Northampton, Amherst, Granby, Hatfield, South Hadley. The majority of these are for actual structure fires. Sometimes we are canceled. Sometimes it is for station coverage. Northampton, we are on automatic mutual aid with our ladder to all of their calls, just as they are to our community. The task force requests, Russell and Ashby. So task force is a statewide fire mobilization plan that we have to be a part of. So if we get that call, we're shipping staffing, and usually it's an engine or a brush truck or a tanker to those to support larger incidents. Russell, I believe, was a mill fire. Ashby, I believe, was a brush fire. I won't stay long, but I can send this to all of you if you'd like to take a deeper look. This is just the breakdown. Again, 1,498 calls in 2019. And that's the breakdown of the event. So I'll certainly send this to you so you can digest it a little bit more. It breaks it down based upon the time of day for you. And if you want me to stop, let me know. I won't kill you here with too much. Again, 2020 was 1,332 total calls. And you can see it's very consistent with that time frame. You can see that level where it drops off usually after 7 or 8 o'clock, but we still have some calls, early mornings and late at night. So that can be a challenge for us. So I'll move forward past these. These are our Hadley Action EMS Med 1 calls. So 2022, this year, they had 1,331 total calls, but they transported 754 times. When we first had Action come in to have a discussion, and when we were trying to get our data from Amherst, we were told that they responded to 350 calls. Action's first year in 2018, they were at close to 700 calls. So we had to adjust our response and how they were staffing. And the same thing happened in Holyoke when they took the Holyoke contract. Their number in Holyoke was double, so they had to add another ambulance. The Hadley shifts, this is how the shifts work. So myself and my deputy, we work Monday through Friday, but we're on call 24/7, and we respond after hours, especially if nobody signs on the air from our call force. We currently staff 2 groups, and we have a full-time captain and a firefighter, and they work a 4-on, 4-off rotating schedule from the 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Our EMS coordinator that started last year, he splits the 2 groups, so he has time with both groups. He's working obviously on all the EMS startup paperwork, and he's also on the 4-on, 4-off schedule. After 6 p.m., we go to available call firefighters that will respond from home to the station, and to get a piece of apparatus, and full-time members, we encourage them to respond if they hear that we're not getting any response from our call force members. Again, Hadley firefighters, they respond with Action EMS to medical calls all the time during the day. If there's nothing going, and this is not in an engine unless they're already in it, it's in the utility truck. After 6, if Hadley Action Med 1 needs assistance, or if assistance, or if it comes in as a major medical or a lift assist, it's toned off to the entire fire department. Having those 2 firefighters and 2 EMTs respond to a medical, it improves patient care and improves upon load and go times to the hospital and a quicker return to Hadley for the next call. Again, if CPR is in progress, it's all hands on deck, and sometimes the 2 firefighters and 2 EMTs is not enough. It's not enough to handle it, and we request assistance from PD or even a mutual aid ambulance to come assist. Again, lift assist may require multiple members, and the fire department, as you know, we are the ones who work with seniors and town residents that need lock boxes. If they feel that they may need access, we may need access to the home, we will provide them with a lockbox so we can gain entry without having to break doors and windows. Again, we were talking about overlapping calls. We had the 298 overlapping calls this past year. During these calls, the chief or deputy chief will respond to the second call, or the crew, if we happen to have any call force folks that can show up. Sometimes our daytime mechanic, Jason Hall, will come. He's on the fire department. If off-duty full-time firefighters or call firefighters available, they may also respond to assist with a second or third call happening. I just wanted to give you some examples and some timeframes so you can see how critical it is that we have full-time staffing. So these are calls after 6 p.m. This happened on 11/21/2022 at 11:14 p.m. in the Target parking lot. So again, if you look at the time of call, 11:14, our first engine on scene was 11:27. So that's, you know, if this was during the day, it would probably be a 4 or 5 minute response. After 6, the folks have to get up, get out of bed, put their clothes on, get in their car, drive to the station. So usually it's myself or the deputy getting there quicker to evaluate, and that can be a scary day. This is the barn fire on Shattuck Road on January 19th. We were very fortunate. Our call force guys got to the brand new North Station quickly, but this picture came from this building was 100% gone basically when 911 got called. However, the concern was this is the house next to it, the homeowner's house. Again, if we had our full-time department there, we may very well have been able to prevent this damage. And we were extremely lucky the call force guys got there early that night, because you can see how hot this was getting. Luckily, they had this reflective insulation board there that did help, but you can see how badly damaged the siding was. The roof up here, even the upper level house, had damage to it. So there was extreme radiant heat coming off of that barn. This was at on Old Mountain Road at 3:40 in the morning. X1, myself and X2 were on scene as quick as possible getting up there. So you can see the time frame. This was when it was, luckily we had just received some rain. This was during that dry spell in 2022. And this thing burnt about 1.5 feet into the ground. This live wire, it took them a while to get it secured. So we were just concerned that if this got into grass or anything like that, we would have been fighting multiple structure fires, because this home's, right below this. So we got lucky that day. This was in February, 7:55 p.m. Our engine 4 responded with 1 call force member, then called in again and requested assistance. You can see this is basically this is their furnace that was completely inundated and had started burning. You can see all the debris in here. So again, 1 firefighter responding to this with high CO levels in the house, and all the burn marks you can see and smoke damage. So again, a little bit hairy not having that full-time staff. This is a rollover on September 21st on West Street. Again, I was on scene somewhat quickly, so 10:23 I got there, and then our first engine was on scene at 10:29. So again, you'd cut that time frame down substantially if we had that full-time staffing in the house. This is probably the worst one for me. I mean, I've had some other pretty serious calls, but this was a very serious accident on Mill Valley Road. Occurred at 1:46 in the morning, high speed. This car was hanging from the tree. You can see our equipment that's holding it up. But I arrived on scene at 1:55. The person had expired. We had our EMS crew there. They were able to evaluate that. The thing that concerns me is you can see the time frame for our first engine, 204 or 203, I should say, with all the tools and equipment that we would need to extricate a patient. If we did have this type of an accident, I can tell you when I first started as a call force firefighter, one of my first calls was on Route 9 for a head-on, where an 18-year-old Amherst high school student unfortunately slammed head-on into another car. And that's when my wife and I actually had Nabala's Market, and I was on the call force at the time. So in my construction gear, I ran over and did what I could, but I had to wait for the call force department to get to the station to come be able to extricate people. And unfortunately that person was unable to, didn't make it. Not that would it have mattered? Probably not, but it's tough when you're the one standing there waiting for the ambulance or the fire truck to get there. So these are, again, this is a couple of examples. So this happened in December to me. So we were toned off for the smell for reported gas leak at Greenleaf Drive. Again, I arrived on scene at 7:22. The resident stated that their cat was pawing at the water heater room door. Again, I have my turnout gear on, and technically, if we're following OSHA standard, there's supposed to be 2 in, 2 out. However, I can't jeopardize a Greenleaf's senior housing unit with 40 apartments in it. I opened the door to find flames blowing out of the bottom of the hot water heater up the side of it. Again, this was all being fueled by the natural gas that's supplied to it. I was luckily able to shut off the gas valve at the tank, and it did extinguish itself. But if they hadn't called us, and if I hadn't been there, this room had part of the ceiling was not in place. So this would have been probably one of those cases that we would have been fighting a multi-level structure fire, even with sprinklers. Again, the X2, so my deputy responded to Greenleaf's on January 14th for a reported general fire alarm. Turns out it was a sprinkler head activation due to a freeze up on the 3rd floor in the attic that ran through into multiple floors. It flooded numerous apartments, damaged electrical. The building had to be basically evacuated. And again, the next units to arrive were engine 3 with 2, engine 4 with 1. So limited and an arrival at 1:23. And then I responded because I act as the role of emergency manager, so we could get all those seniors into a hotel for the evening. So again, our concern is that not only OSHA, but it's a little bit scary when you're responding at night by yourself to these calls, and the calls aren't decreasing, they're increasing. So success stories. So on the flip side, having the full-time staffing, on May 13th, 2020, we had a call for reported structure fire on Russell Street. Our engine 1 with our full-time crew on scene at 9:08, a 4-minute response time, and myself at 9:10 for a basement fire with heavy black smoke coming through from the east side of the home with 2 reported dogs trapped in the house. Our engine 1 crew, so my deputy and one of my full-time members, made entry with a hand line, extinguished the fire within minutes, and we were able to extricate the 2 dogs and get them to our ambulance crew, who walked them down to the vet store, the vet shop that's right there, and both dogs survived. A little bit of good news there. And then again on 7/24/2022, luckily I was on Route 9 dropping off a meal for someone, and we had a reported structure fire due to a grill up against a house on East Commons. So this is 5:15, so 45 minutes later, we wouldn't have had the crew in the station. That you can see the response time. They were there at 5:19. So again, a 4-minute response time. A quick attack on that gas-fueled fire that was blowing up the side of the house. We were able to extinguish that. And I was literally shaking when I was there, because I'm telling you, those houses are so close together. If we didn't have that engine crew there and had to wait for our call force to get to the station, and again, this is not their fault, they get there as quickly as they can, we would have been probably fighting a full structure fire and potentially a second house. So And that's my quick abbreviated. Hopefully that wasn't too long for you, but it gives you a little bit of just a little bit of insight on what we're dealing with and just concerns that I have. I've reported it every year in my annual report. It's been in my 10-year program to try and build out our department. And I think it's time. I think we're there where we really need to get 24-hour staffing.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Excuse me, you're gonna send this deck to us?
If you would like that, I would be happy
I'd
to.
like a copy of it. Yes.
Yes, please. Having the examples really makes it so real. And having the times there. So thank you for that.
Mike, the one thing I wanted to add more to kind of just emphasizing some of the things that you guys do, that I guess one of the things that I feel like, working with you from the hotel side, seeing a higher frequency of is, it seems like we're seeing a lot, especially last 12 months, a lot of elderly people with, they're not able to pay for heat. I think for frozen pipes and so on. And so can you talk a little bit more on what, I guess from my observation, it seems like an increasing trend, but I think a lot of people don't know you guys really respond to many of those things and do more placement and, social work, not real fire, historical firefighter work, but more outside work.
Yeah, that's another part of our program, and it's actually in our grant application as well, is public outreach, community outreach. So working with the Council on Aging. So if we know that we have a cold snap coming in, we're reaching out to Haley and asking, do you have any seniors that you're concerned about? Do we, normally we'll open up a warming shelter for them, but we have seen where not only hoarding situations, but also just, again, not having the money or trying to use different ways of heating to save money. We're seeing where, there has been an increase of that just because of the costs in heating oil and gas. It's not a lot in Hadley, but there's probably a lot we don't know that's going on too. But again, we're dealing with 64 North Maple Street, trying to assist with that. And then you helped us out with that, the other family, where they were just really embarrassed about not getting the tank of oil, and pipes froze up and they were just staying there with water flowing in the basement. So again, that can be a challenge. The other big part of our work is all the inspections. I don't think people realize that we're out every day doing home inspections for sales, building inspections. I didn't even put pictures in here of some of the things that we find annually, that Tommy and I are consistently working with business owners to make sure that they're keeping up on. Our restaurants, just keeping up with their hoods, having them, they're required to have them cleaned and inspected. If we're doing that inspection once a year and they're not getting their hoods cleaned when they're supposed to after 6 months, we're usually finding it during the annual inspection. So getting that outreach done and making sure they are aware of that. We usually get into these homes when we're doing oil burner inspections, propane inspections, all that stuff. So we have an opportunity to talk with folks, and again, working with the senior center and doing our outreach that way, with our senior safe program and our student programs. So getting information out that way. So yeah, we're kind of the catch-all of everything. We have to take care of we have a huge mountain in our town here. Skinner Mountain is a challenge. We have a lot of folks that like hiking up there or biking, and we usually end up getting called numerous times for folks that get lost or slip and fall. We have multiple events that they have up there. They have the Seven Sisters race that we staff up there. The river is another challenge. Annual flooding. I mean, all of it that's in our wheelhouse.
Thank you very much. I've often mentioned, I've noticed fire departments, they're out they're at the Young Men's Club doing, or at a function, or at the Legion doing a function, or at somewhere, or even at the schools doing functions. So you show a lot of community support all the time. So we appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. Does anyone else have anything else to add for the fire or oh, Mike, are you going to do dispatch?
That's Mike Mason usually handles that, and
Okay.
I know he's not feeling well. I'm not sure he's not going to be here tonight, correct, Carolyn?
Okay. All right. So we will wait for that then. Wonderful. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
And I'll get you that PowerPoint, and I also do have the spreadsheet of the basically the pay scale, so you can actually see the breakdown of fire versus EMS. I'll get that to you. Get that to you as well.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, so I believe that's all we have for the budget tonight, because if Mike Mason's not going to be here, we will, Linda or Carolyn, do we have anything else that we'll be talking about in budget?
Not tonight. We were looking to next week's. I mean, we will have to reschedule police. Try to look at the schedule. And I know next Monday night was we're scheduled for doing a warrant review, and Carolyn's not able to be here that night. So I don't know if we were, at some point, I know you've got something else on your agenda, so maybe we do this at the end of the meeting, but I'm wondering if we want to look and see if there's one more meeting to schedule in here just to pick up the budgets. We're unable to make it so far, and also have more of a chance with the warrant.
Okay. Wonderful.
Amy,
Okay,
I can also work on getting the warrant out to you. It hasn't changed much since we had it up on board docs for the select board, but I can just show you where it's at right now. Remember, it's just still in draft form, but at least you guys can take a look at it.
great. So I get a lot from the board docs, but I don't believe everybody does.
Yeah.
So if you don't mind passing it to everyone.
I will. The budgets are not in yet, not until you guys make your recommendations, but a lot of placeholders and highlights, so.
Thank you. Okay, so why don't we turn it over to Laura at Valley CDC, and we will finish up with that. Hi, Laura.
Hi, how are you, Amy?
And well, thanks.
So I really appreciate your time. I can see this is busy budget season. Was really interested in the chief's presentation. I have a newfound appreciation for how packed their schedule is and how many different things they're trying to juggle. So I have also a PowerPoint. I tried to focus on the questions that the committee had sent forward to the Zoning Board of Appeals and sprinkle in some data, a little bit of editorializing. So I want to also kind of power through it and then let you ask me questions, because I know you have a lot of work on your plate. How are we doing? Can you guys see this?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, awesome. So I'm just gonna stop me with any questions that you have, or we can talk at the end. So one question was potential lost revenue because of the proposed use versus the current hotel business. And as I think this committee is aware, the seller did place a deed restriction that us, the grantee, our successors and assigns shall not use the granted premises as a hotel, motel, or other establishment providing short-term lodging to the general public. This is essentially a non-compete. The seller owns other hotels in Hadley, as I'm sure you're aware. So it leaves us in a situation where this property is no longer able to generate lodging taxes as it has done in the past. My observation is that there are newer and kind of fancier hotels available in Hadley, and the loss of the hotel rooms at the Econo Lodge has strong potential to drive hotel customers to more expensive rooms, which could create an offset or even or increase the lodging taxes received by the town overall. This is really information coming to me from the seller of the property, again, owning multiple hotels in Hadley. His description of the Hadley hotel market is kind of a destination market, colleges, it's seasonal. And so with more and more hotels being built out, they're not all full. And so if you lose one, you may see those lodging taxes generated from another hotel in town. Real estate taxes, this is an email from Dan, because we've been back and forth a couple times. I supplied him some information about what we estimate the real estate taxes would be in the proposed new use. And we continue to think it's around the same as based on the value of the building, which is around $4 million. So at the current tax rate, that's $46,160 a year. We looked at potential reuse scenarios given the deed restriction that's in place that doesn't allow hotel use. So one reuse option is to convert it to another commercial use, like the proposed Howard Johnson's is converting to offices. And I think the tax rate would stay about the same. One community member suggested that we lease or sell the property to the Chinese Immersion Charter School, which would leave it with a tax exempt owner and a tax exempt use. So there would not be real estate taxes in that scenario. We could lease or sell to another nonprofit provider of housing for a special population. So the deed restriction is that we don't basically function as a hotel for the general public. It doesn't prevent us from doing short-term housing, homeless shelter, sober housing, teen parents, et cetera, that kind of special purpose housing. Again, I expect that would be a tax exempt use. And certainly there's always a market seasonally for UMass. They leased it over the past fall. And again, if we retained it as a nonprofit owner and leased it for an educational use, I suspect it would be a tax exempt use. So these aren't all the possible scenarios. They were just some of the ones that popped to mind based on what comments we had from people. Wanting to study the financial impact of potential added costs to the town as opposed to the current or possible uses for the property. I mostly focused on a comparison with the hotel use because other possible uses is such a broad kind of category. So we've established that we will use a bit less of water, sewer, and have a bit less traffic than as the hotel use. We do not anticipate much impact on school costs. The apartment sizes are small. We're targeting single adults and couples. It could be that there are occasionally children living in the building, but I don't think it's going to be a common or widespread thing. And just my note, as I'm sure you know, that the largest item in your town budget is the cost of schools. Other impacts on finances, we've offered to the ZBA, which is common, that we can pick up costs associated with the hearing itself, like town council costs. We believe there will be secondary economic impacts from the use that we're proposing. Based on the appraisal, the Econo Lodge was operating before the pandemic at 53% occupancy of its rooms. I'm sure people who stayed there went to restaurants and things while they were staying there. We tend to run apartments that are 95 to 100% occupancy. And so there's more people, kind of a captive audience for the surrounding stores and businesses and groceries and things like that. We believe there's a benefit in workforce housing, that Hadley employers need stable, available workforce in order to be profitable. This dovetails, I think, nicely with the fire chief's presentation. And I think it's one of the key items that the finance committee was concerned about is, and given the stretched condition of existing staff, will this change in use result in more demand on emergency services, police, fire, EMS? So I did a pretty deep dive a while ago on our 911 calls per resident at our other comparable properties. They're housing very low income single adults and people who might be coming out of homelessness. And we're estimating that we'll have 911 calls at an average of 1.5 per year, hopefully less. So we expect an occupancy of 50 to 62 people. So that would yield a call volume of 75 to 93 calls per year. David, I believe, provided information on the Econo Lodge's history. 79 calls during a 3-year period, average of 26 calls per year. So a call increase volume potential of 67 calls, 911 calls per year. I just pulled some information off the Hadley website. So there were 14,029 911 calls logged in the police dispatch call logs that are on the website for calendar year 2022. So a potential increase of 79 calls per year is an increase of 0.0056 in call volume, which I would describe as incremental, but it's still something. So just wanted to acknowledge that. The other question, third question was, does the proposed use serve the highest priority group of residents who currently reside in town? And so we are presenting some data here that we'll also share with the Zoning Board of Appeals, which is that almost 52% of Hadley renters are cost burdened, meaning they pay more than a third of their income for rent, and about 31% pay more than half of their income for their rent. Another 27.4% of Hadley homeowners are also in the same situation where they're paying more than 30% of their income for their housing costs. 44% of all Hadley residents earn less than $50,000, making the vast majority of them income eligible to live at the proposed redevelopment at the Econo Lodge. And a little over a quarter of Hadley residents are living below $20,000 a year of income, which qualifies them as at risk of homelessness and therefore eligible for an apartment with a homeless preference. So this is just data to try to match up who's here in Hadley now and who would be eligible to live in this property, and is there a connection between those two things. So one thing that people may not be aware of is the breadth of the definition of homelessness. It's some of the things that you probably would think of. You don't have a permanent residence, but included in that are if you're sharing housing with someone else, family member, friends, you're doubled up. You're living in a hotel, motel, someplace not, typically, or you're living in an overcrowded housing situation, living in cars, parks, etc. Substandard housing, which is a common one. You are living in a house, you have housing, but you're subject to domestic violence, or you're at risk of homelessness, which is defined as the individual household that has income below 30% of the median income. And that's where I pulled that data that a quarter of Hadley residents qualify for that particular definition of homelessness. We've heard quite a bit about the possible need for senior housing in Hadley. And I would just suggest Hadley actually does have a fair amount of housing provided for seniors. And so if I were doing senior housing, I would be wanting to do a market study to figure out whether the percentage of Hadley residents who are seniors is high, indicates a need for more housing, or whether it's high because you have a fair amount of senior housing. At any rate, 19% of Hadley residents are seniors. We looked at our existing properties that Valley rents. Again, to low-income individuals, we checked out the studios and one-bedroom apartments and found that 42% of our tenants are seniors aged 55 or older. And this is without any preference or priority for seniors. So what we're seeing is there is a naturally occurring match between low-income, small-size apartments and low-income seniors. They are finding their way to us whether or not we prioritize or define it as senior housing. So how would this proposed development mesh with Hadley seniors who might want to downsize? So the small size of the apartments we think is appropriate. They're affordable for people living on a fixed income. All of the utilities are included in rent. As the chief was talking about, people having a lot of trouble paying for utilities these days. The apartments are accessible and the building has an elevator. The site is on a really frequent PVTA bus route with 2 stops nearby, and it's walking distance to a variety of shops and restaurants. It's not going to be for every senior, and it's not going to be for every Hadley senior, but there are some seniors in Hadley that would be very pleased to be able to live at this location. So nationally, there's a pronounced increase in the number of seniors who are also homeless. And this is just a little bit of blip of data about that. And again, the point that these groups are overlapping. Homeless low-income persons and homeless seniors are increasingly the same folks. A couple examples of people who have made it into the media for being homeless in Hadley. And, you know, these are not the only homeless people in Hadley, but they're the ones who've popped up in the media recently. So there's a 1-hour interview with a man who is a homeless veteran who walks the streets of Hadley every day. This is from 2021. And there's a much more recent Daily Hampshire Gazette article. People probably saw it. Man's cats removed from Hadley home with no heat and running water. And I just quoted this, Carolyn's quote, because it illustrated to me how many departments and how many resources were drawn to this situation of someone who is currently in Hadley, who owns a home, and yet is defined as homeless because the house is entirely inadequate to meet his needs. The proposed redevelopment matches well with Hadley's own planning documents. The housing production plan was just very recently finished and is being adopted by different boards. So a few little snippets from that. One goal is to increase eligible housing units by 11 within the next 12 months. That condominiums and apartments would be welcomed within the Village Overlay District and along the Route 9 corridor. That the town has identified 3 specific sites that could be developed for affordable housing, including the Hampshire Mall site, which we are directly adjacent to, and that the town is open to encouraging and using 40B as a permitting tool for these sites, which is the permitting tool that we are requesting from the zoning board, and that the town will pursue new affordable housing that meets the town's greatest needs, that is, for seniors and lower income residents. And as I'm trying to suggest with the data, these groups of seniors and low-income residents are in many cases overlapping. So what would be additional costs to police, fire, and ambulance departments? I've mentioned that the increase in call volume. I'm going to talk about ways that I think that can be offset by having on-site staff at this property. I don't believe any new town equipment is needed because it's an existing building. It's an already developed site. We're not creating something new. And our understanding is that Hadley is in the process of adding capacity to these departments as well as the ambulance that was talked about earlier. So one question we get a lot from communities is what if we're wrong? What if all this happy news I'm giving you is just, you know, unintentionally turns out not to be the case? What is the town's recourse? So again, how could the town address a future situation where these emergency service costs, in spite of our best efforts, exceed the estimates? And so these are just some suggestions. I think it's a point of conversation between a developer and community. We could benchmark and track the 911 calls. We could post a bond, which is sometimes done for like a subdivision. We could set up a capital reserve. And we could collaborate with the departments in Hadley to secure grants. We have observed our neighboring communities, Northampton in particular, whenever Valley does a development, they become very successful at raising money for related costs, infrastructure, public health and safety, and others. So there's a medley of state grants that are a community is much more competitive for them if you are doing an affordable housing development. And so we would be very happy to work with Hadley. There might be a win-win where it can add value for the housing as well as for the larger community. One of the comments we heard was that Hadley was already doing more than its share of hosting affordable housing. I just wanted to pull up current numbers, 12.6 in Amherst, 12.5 in Hadley, which is going down, but for purposes of apples to apples, I'm just pulling off this 2010 census data. Northampton 11.4, Sunderland 10.7. So some of the immediate neighbors are right in the same vicinity, with Amherst being a little smidge higher. Hadley is not standing out as dramatically different from its immediate neighbors. A note about Hadley's housing production over the 20 years between 2000 and 2020, Hadley permitted 238 new single-family homes and 0 multifamily homes, and it has not added any affordable housing to its subsidized housing inventory in over 20 years. So in terms of being able to meet that goal in the housing production plan of adding 11 new units in the coming 12 months, I don't know that the town has a clear path forward to do that, because that's a very short timeline. I'm gonna actually stop here because I've been going on. I do have a slide deck that specifically is a deep dive I did on call data, 911 call data for the properties that Valley owns. Happy to go through it with you, but I feel like I'm taking a lot of your time. So you let me know your preference.
Does anyone want to see more data? Laura?
Can we get a copy of the deck?
I can send you a copy of the deck, and I can include all the 911 breakdown. It's pretty fascinating, actually, when you go into the details of the call logs. You get a more nuanced picture of what's happening. What we found when we dug into all the calls was our residents tend to call 911 when they shouldn't, when they don't have a police emergency or a fire emergency, because the kinds of things that they're calling about are the kinds of things that other people might call a friend or family member about, but they don't have those supports. For example, we had a call that was recorded as theft. So the police went because someone reported a theft. And the theft was that there was a charge on their credit card that they thought was fraudulent. So they called the police. Police came. You know, it's not. So our answer to some of that, to how much social work is happening by our first responders, is to have more on-site staff. And so that's what we're proposing at this development, because we think we can cut down the call volume pretty dramatically by having people have a resource on site rather than picking up the phone and calling 911 because they have no one else to ask for advice or help.
Laura, I just have a question on the income slide there. I think it was 25% are living off of 19,000 a year or less.
Yep.
Does that include retirement income, or I mean, how
Yeah.
is that classified? Because if that's the case, we have about 1,400 people in this town living off of less than $19,000 a year.
Yeah.
And that may be the case, but
yeah.
How do they afford the property taxes? How do they afford to eat and everything else? It just seems like it's
Yep.
Interesting stat.
Yeah, so this is all data taken out of the census, and I can certainly pull the specific table that it's taken out of. We don't collect this data directly. People self-report their income on the census, and they're asked to include income from all sources. And this is what the people of Hadley have reported to the Census Bureau, and we've gone in and kind of grabbed that data. More of those folks will be renters than homeowners. But when I look at the breakout, because you can break it out by different tranches of income, you know, the homeowners skew toward the higher incomes and the renters skew toward the lower incomes, but they're homeowners and renters both falling in this under $20,000 category. So partly I brought this up because the poverty rate kept being talked about, and I don't think that's the meaningful measure, because that's not going to be the income cap on this rental housing, is not going to be the poverty rate. And so how well does the actual income limit for the property match the incomes of people currently living in Hadley? And we think there's a strong correlation.
I was just curious because it's got to include students or something, because I mean, if you maybe, you know, that mom and dad are paying the bills for the house, because if you worked at Dunkin' making, you know, minimum wage, you'd be in the $30,000 a year range. So the numbers got shocking, that's all.
I will pull more data. There is, in small towns especially, there's a margin of error that the census data will show you what their plus minus is. You know, there are a lot of senior households that will fall into this category, and Hadley does have affordable rental housing, and folks living in that rental housing might also fall into this category.
Laura, this new the renters will not be able to be students, correct? You're not renting to students at like UMass.
Yeah, well, if we're granted our permit and we do what we've asked to do, the kind of funding that we'll use limits us and says we can't rent to undergraduate students who are dependents of their parents. We could rent to someone who is, older and working part-time and going to school part-time. So it's a little bit of a distinction, but they're intentionally trying to keep people whose income is low because they're students and dependents of their parents out of affordable housing stock that's publicly subsidized. So we would screen for those full-time undergrad students would not be eligible to live there.
And I think where you're coming up with some of those numbers, if I'm correct, we have a lot of rentals in Hadley and a lot of them are students. We have a lot of students. I mean, I just know because I'm opening all the time tenant escrow accounts. And on the tenant escrow accounts, I will open and someone will bring me 4 students for one place. Yep. Or even more. Yep. So we have a lot of students. And of course, those students' incomes are going to be low because they're full-time students. Yep. And maybe they have a part-time job. So yep. I think when we're looking at those numbers, some of those will show that, yeah, if you're looking at those numbers, just like Amherst is, when you look at the Amherst numbers, Amherst almost shows as a poverty, right? That they have a lot of poverty. And we know it does not, because that's talking about students. It's not necessarily talking about all the houses. The house values are just as high in Amherst as they are in Hadley.
Right. So statistics are funky. And depending on which numbers you pull, you paint a picture, right? We all know this. It's probably more nuanced than I'm presenting or than you're saying, Amy. It's like, it's muddled together. Yes, maybe some students, seniors, you have a bunch of different people who are going to fall into a certain income category. And then I think folks who are, as I've said before, working at the employers that are, thick on Route 9 are working fairly low wage jobs, and they're absolutely going to be income eligible for this housing. And to me, that's a clear benefit for those businesses located in that area, and for the workers who are not having to commute so far to get to their jobs.
Right. So one of the things you mentioned in your slides, which I didn't really understand, in one of the sections you said a potential use of that. You mentioned lease or sell to a nonprofit owner for other housing. I didn't really understand that, because we don't, if you didn't get the permit, why would anybody else get the permit?
So the reason they would get the permit is the zoning is different. When you're doing a program, you're zoned under 40A, which is how the charter school is zoned, or any other kind of charitable program. So housing is not eligible typically under 40A, just kind of standard affordable housing. We went through this back and forth quite a bit, Bill Dwyer and I, and it was a gray area, but we erred on the side of caution and went under 40B. But something that is programmatic in nature and is offering transitional housing could be zoned under 40A. So you could have, and this hotel has been used within recent memory for UMass students, and it's been used as a homeless shelter. And so clearly those are eligible uses in Hadley. And so we don't want to do any of those things. We're trying to get a permit to do permanent affordable housing. But the question has been raised about, well, what if you don't do that? What else could this hotel be? And I would just say, because of the existing deed restriction, options are, finite. I haven't listed them all. And I think in terms of generating tax revenue, we're somewhere in the middle of the pack, because there are exempt uses that have been suggested for this property that would not pay real estate taxes.
So did you have, when you did the sale, did you have a contingency for the deed restriction? Did you have some type of contingency with the seller so that if it didn't go, because you didn't have the approval of the from the ZBA, which was a big risk, right? Because that's 3 people making a decision. You don't have that approval. That sounds like an awful big risk for the Valley CDC to take on that risk for them, I would think you would have some type of contingency with the seller so that you could get out of that.
Yep, we had a contingency within the purchase and sales agreement. We stretched as long as we could before needing to kind of fish or cut bait with the seller. It's the reality of the marketplace. People don't wait indefinitely for you to line up your permitting. Sometimes you do take those risks.
Yeah, that's, I mean, not having, depending on 3 people and putting a risk like that, that's a lot of money. I was just shocked when I saw that
Yeah.
risk. I'm like,
Well,
I couldn't believe it.
there are other potential uses, as people have been bringing up to us. There are potential buyers, there are other potential uses for the hotel. And I think part of the reason the hotel was for sale in the first place was, again, it's one of the economy level hotels in Hadley. And I don't know the Hadley hotel market particularly well. I think we have someone here who's been referenced as a hotel owner, maybe can say, you know, is the hotel market saturated in Hadley? Is it, I mean, did it get overbuilt at some point in time? I don't know the answer to that.
I'll just chime in since I was referenced. But, so I'll be honest, I'm a little confused why the finance committee is kind of reviewing this, and don't know, because I don't know how we sway, you know, what you're doing. I appreciate what you're saying and what you're doing. I don't want to talk about the hotel market because the decisions by that owner is their decisions. In terms of what you're presenting, in terms of I will say from operating standpoint, I know our employees struggle with housing.
Yep.
Definitely have issues with housing in this area. It's severe in terms of, I'll just speaking as a hotel hospitality operator, we've struggled, meaning there are times where my family has to jump in to help out, just because, and a lot of other operators in hospitality, restaurants, whatever, are dealing with the same issues. And so I sympathize with a lot of the issues that you brought up. In terms of, you know, whether this building is appropriate or not, it's not for me to. I don't know. You know, I don't know enough about. You know, you had a great presentation. I just don't know enough about everything to say to anything. And the hotel market in Hadley, I think, is doing much better since COVID has now gone. But yeah, it's definitely. Again, I can speak from in terms of the needs of the people that are and the things that I've seen. I think Mike talked about the people of, you know, getting their pipes frozen. I think people don't realize that there's a lot of people in Hadley that are struggling. You know, outside of house values, that doesn't really determine. That's a wealth indicator in the sense that they have this wealth. It doesn't mean that they might have a mortgage on it, or in terms of their income that they're actually receiving and how they're reporting it. They might be reporting really income that after all of their expenses. You know, especially if you're in agriculture, your income is probably your bottom line number, not your top line number. So that 20,000 might be more reflective of real people, not just students. So I think we have to be understanding that it's hard for me to believe that 25% of Hadley residents are students. You know, that seems excessive, but I could be wrong. I mean, but there is definitely a need in our area for this type of product. You know, we definitely need better housing, because I'll be honest, I don't think a lot of the hospitality operators, restaurants, hotels, we're gonna run into issues where we're not gonna be able to. You're gonna see a reduction of meals tax and hotel tax, not because of business, but because we're going to have to start reducing the number of rooms that we're selling because we can't clean them, or we can't service that table,
Right.
or we're
Right.
not able to go and
Right.
make that front desk or whatever. This is a bigger issue of not just Hadley, but mainly all of Hampshire County. So
I had shared a story when the pandemic ended and Econo Lodge tried to reopen. They couldn't because they couldn't get the staffing. So there is a crisis of frontline workers and low wage workers. And one of the correlations is the fact that there isn't housing in the, in proximity to the jobs that people can afford to live in. So the reason the Finance Committee is talking about this is the comprehensive permit process through the ZBA. They reach out to all the town boards and they ask for comment. And the Finance Committee raised comments and questions and concerns at the hearing. And so I wanted to grab the committee's time a little bit to come and respond to those questions and concerns that have been raised. Because I think the message might have come across as the Finance Committee, not that they didn't support it, but they were pretty concerned about it from a financial, how it would impact the town's finances, and also whether it met the needs of Hadley residents.
yeah, and the only thing I will say to in terms of the hotel market is that the economy market in Hadley it struggles by far, and in general in most areas of you build a new hotel, you have a nicer hotel, business-minded hotel.
Right.
That's where the people, the families that are coming into this area, the business people,
Right.
they're going to stay in those hotels. And as a brand, Econo Lodge or some of those economy brands,
Right.
it doesn't really. And we experienced it ourselves. We have a hotel that was more economy minded, and we thought it would be fine, and it wasn't. So.
Right. So, there is a question of, was it a viable enterprise? Yeah, I think the pandemic shook loose a lot of businesses that might have been more financially marginal. People just let go of them. We've seen a lot of closings that I think relate to that in hospitality and restaurants and things. Are there other questions from the committee? Because I feel like I've been talking at you a lot.
The one other thing is is there a waiting list to get into these housing developments? I believe for a while it was like an 8-year waiting list.
Yeah.
Is that still the case?
Yeah.
Is it still that? And
Yeah.
and where do you get where does the waiting list come from? Is that all of Western Mass, or is that just Hampshire County?
Yeah, so wait lists are terrible, multi-year in most cases. For our local properties, we run about 1,500 people on a wait list who are local for local affordable housing. What would happen with a new development like this is there would be marketing done. It's very prescribed, how long we market, how much we market, so that everybody has a fair chance. And then people apply and we have a lottery. Because we'll have anywhere from, we usually have 8-to-1, 10-to-1 applicants versus apartments. So everybody who's not selected, who doesn't rise to the top of the lottery, becomes the original wait list. And then as new people apply, they come on the bottom of that wait list. And then the wait list is culled every year. We go through and see if people are still interested, still around. Maybe they found housing and kind of refresh it. But it's tough because we have a lot of people coming into our offices, which are in Northampton, looking for affordable housing, and we can give them a bunch of paperwork, but we don't have vacancies. So
you might be helping someone from over in Berkshire County that would be on a waiting list that could come here or anywhere. You have that, you take care of that waiting list for all of Western Mass type of thing.
No, we take care of waiting lists for our particular properties that we own.
Okay.
And people can apply from anywhere. I know we've talked a little bit with different boards about local preference. And that's something the ZBA could talk with us more about, that would favor Hadley residents during that initial lottery. But yeah, anybody who's income eligible can apply. We do a screening, we do a pretty full-blown screening of folks. We do criminal backgrounds checks, credits checks, references, interviews, the whole 9 yards. Probably more than most landlords do, because we want to make sure we have a safe place for our tenants to live.
Well, I think it was a great presentation. I learned a lot, and I'm happy you came today.
Thank you.
I'd love to just have the deck to run through, and
Yeah.
and then we'll see where we have to go from there.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sure the ZBA, I think they're actively looking for feedback from different boards. So if you have other feedback you want to give them, I'm sure they'd be happy for that.
Okay.
So send the deck to Amy, right? And she'll
Sure,
just,
I
okay.
can distribute to everyone. Sure.
Thank you for so much time during budget season, especially.
Okay,
you.
well, thank
Thank
you
you
very
for coming
much.
out tonight.
We appreciate it.
Sure.
All right. Okay,
Time for my motion. Is there anything else? I'm sorry.
anything else, Carolyn?
Can I just ask Shardul to send me an email so I'll have his email address? And if you're able to, are you able to stop in during the day? I can get a budget book ready for you to pick up here in town hall.
I can stop by tomorrow.
Okay, I'll get
Okay.
one ready for you. And also, if there's any time where you want my perspective or some background on the budget or some more information, I'd be happy to set aside some time and get you up to at least give you my perspective. And then,
Sure.
and then the finance committee will help with theirs. Okay,
All right, great.
right, thank you.
Wonderful.
Excellent. I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
Oh, wait a minute,
Oh,
we do
sorry.
have one more thing. Because didn't you say, Linda, you wanted to look at another meeting?
Oh, yes.
Carolyn,
Yes,
do we
do.
want to work on adding one in? Where did my book go?
Yeah, my apologies. I have my own select board meeting on Mondays. I'll be done in May, though. I'm not running again, so Mondays will open up after May.
So, So Monday night is scheduled for the warrant review, but Carolyn's not going to be there. So I don't know how valuable that would be without Carolyn.
Is the chief, are we able to move the police department to that night? Since we have a scheduled night anyway? Yeah, assuming he's feeling better? You said he was ill, right?
Right. Yeah, he should be better next week.
I think
Yeah.
he'll be better.
We just have to advertise it and change the agenda officially though? Do we have time to do that?
You wouldn't be there, Carolyn. That makes a difference?
Oh, wait, it's Thursday. I don't have, yes, I can update the agenda. As long as it's posted, I can update the agenda.
Everybody okay with that? Since we already have it on our schedules blocked out, and that way it might be a shorter than evening if it's just the police department at that point.
It
If that
could
was the only other thing we were doing, or do we have anybody else that night?
No, not that night. Let me just look. Because I see you scheduled Board of Health. I wonder if they might want to move into just looking to see if any of them are long. If you want me to pull forward even my budget or something that get interest.
I would think that'd be great if we could just move as many as we can forward, just in case we need to go over for other things. We'll be,
I would like to be there for Board of Health.
Okay.
There's a couple of them that I would like to be there for, so let me just, maybe Linda, you and I can take a look and then.
Sure. But debt and interest or something is some of these little ones that we can just knock off that. Okay, yes, we'll talk tomorrow and see what else if we can schedule it, because Board of Health, I think, made that meeting a little bit long next Thursday. So I'm wondering if there's anything we can pull forward. Finance committee.
yeah, ours is easy.
Yeah, that's it. We'll just bring yours and mine, folks, and we'll take care of that. Oh, Susan's got her hand up.
You can add me in Monday night too.
Sure. All right.
Okay. All right. We will talk with Carolyn tomorrow and decide which things we can move forward most easily. And that will help. That way, do we not need to add an extra meeting in, or do you want to add an extra one for, because you'll still want to schedule a warrant review meeting?
Yeah, we still need a warrant review meeting because you wanted us to be done by April, but I don't know if we can get done by April.
The warrant's gonna be, there's not any capital on it at this point, besides just, there might be one article on there for, it's one we always have on there.
Oh, the water.
Water. Yes,
water
we don't need,
money over, like
I've
the
already
30,000.
taken yeah, I've already taken off of a couple that we aren't doing.
Send out the warrant in, near final draft form. We may be able to go, since there is no capital and there's no big financial things other than the budget. Maybe we can review it and come up with any questions and then combine that warrant review with another.
Right, and that can go into April.
Yeah, because it'd be helpful to have the
It's
budget.
still over a month before town meeting.
Yeah.
When do you need recommendations, Carolyn? Is that the 30-day one? I forget. If they want them published.
How long do we need to publish the warrant?
No, yeah, well, yes, because if they want to have their recommendations in it, or are we not doing it that way anymore?
I'm not sure. I'm sorry. I'm not
Okay,
sure.
well, sometimes they would want, we put the recommendation.
Oh, we're gonna do that. Yes. Yeah, we would want those. Yeah, I mean, it's not gonna take that long to put those recommendations on once we have them. But we wanna, obviously, while you're going through the warrant, that's when we'll get the recommendations. Because we still have to get the select board's recommendations as well.
When do you need the recommendations by, though? When the warrant's posted?
I've got to look at the calendar.
So maybe we can revisit this next week about when.
Yeah, I'll have a better idea when I know it has to go to town council and how long it's going to take Lisa to review it. So I don't have my cheat sheet on that, on my schedule for that.
Okay. All right, so we'll work on police and others for Monday night if that works out. So we'll just change the agenda for Monday night, and then we will then just discuss at a future meeting, maybe Monday night, when you might want to meet in April to talk about the warrant.
Okay.
Matt, I think you're set. I think you'll want one meeting. You don't have your wrap-up meeting here on your overall budget recommendations. So you would want that after March 30th as well. So it looks like you're going to need to put at least one meeting into April.
That's how I see it.
Yeah, we can talk about that maybe next week,
All right.
because I think it's time for the motion.
Yes, it is.
Okay, motion to adjourn? Chardot, this is a tradition, sorry. You can-
It's Ben's tradition. Paul's. Sorry.
Sometimes his cat helps, but it's not there now.
That's one. We need a second. Chardot, would you like to second it? You have to mute off, go off mute.
He's got,
Chardot. Excellent.
okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Always get the rookie on this,
All right.
Aye.